It's that time again when we dive into the minds of influential figures. We interview those that have reached the peak of their career, talk about professional challenges, and also profile solutions. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hot Seats right here on Ogun State Television. I am Moses or Jumoke. Well, today on the show, I have here a broadcaster. Someone that has worked in the local government in the UK for many years. In fact, a former staff of Ogun State Television, the first child of late Otumba Kunle Olasope. The first man on television in West Africa. Wow, that carries weight, right? Join me, welcome, Ms. Jumoke Olasope. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Okay, very quickly, let's get to see her profile. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. And that was the profile of my guest, Ms. Jumoke Olasope, a broadcaster. And you could see there, like I did say, the first child of late Otumba Kunle Olasope, the first man on television in West Africa. And interestingly, she worked here donkey years ago as a newscaster and announcer before she traveled to the United Kingdom, where she worked in the local government sector for many years. So nice to have you join us again, Ms. Jumoke Olasope.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you. A lot to unpack, really, but let's sink our teeth into it. At 18, you were into the spotlight, as a newscaster, and I would like to know, how did you handle that pressure, limelight at that age, being the face, or especially the face of OGTV. At 18, it's very rare to see a very young girl on TV these days, because there's so much attention on experience, and which comes, with years.
Yes. Well, yeah. I think because broadcasting, is inborn for me, because I think I took after my father, and it was something that I really wanted to do. So it wasn't put on me. It was something that I had a passion for. And I believe when you have a passion for something, you've already crossed the first hurdle. Obviously, when I started, you had to have the right pronunciations of certain words. And my father, oh my God, he would have a notebook and pen, and he would write down anything you didn't pronounce properly. And the moment he sees me, he corrects me. So there was that as well. And there was a lot of people that used to come to the television village back then to see me, and I was wondering what's going on here. And And then there was the fright, the stage fright, where you get on set and you want to announce. You might have a bit of stage fright. And I remember back then, we would maybe go to the canteen and drink maybe a bottle of Guinness just to calm the nerves before you face the cameras. But they were interesting times, and I loved every moment of it.
But I mean, how did you handle the pressure, the scrutiny that comes with being a public figure, but also being a daughter of a broadcaster, a renowned one for the matter?
Yeah, there was a lot of attention, And actually, a lot of people did not know my father had a daughter as old as I was back then. And the moment they found out, they would say, "Oh, wow, you have a daughter this old?" And I'm not going to go into the rest of that. But I was a very disciplined girl. I was very focused. And because I knew my father was a public figure, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of attention. So the moment, and I look very much like my father as well. And when people meet me, I just used to be gracious about it, to be quite honest. Be very polite to people, not be arrogant or proud. There was nothing to be proud about, but just be normal. And I'm a lover of human beings anyway. So I just took every moment, on its own merit. And I enjoyed every bit of it. But I don't think I had any negativity as such. Besides maybe my fans, they would write me letters, and they would say maybe they didn't like the way I tied my head tie yesterday when I was reading the news, or when I did my continuity announcing. And I would have to make sure that I adjusted it for next time, because obviously you want to please the audience, or your viewers. So yeah, I didn't have any negativity. So there wasn't anything for me to deal with in a pressured manner. So it was smooth sailing, I would say.
Well, I could recall that Concord newspaper, W, a chief of the old block. And yes, that suggests high expectations, really, due to your father's legacy. So how did you carve a niche, for yourself?
To be quite honest, I didn't do any rehearsals or any practice. I used to listen to my father. I used to watch my father. And like I said, my father used to, he brought up a lot of young men. He discovered a lot of young, talented broadcasters. And, he would train them. And I used to go and meet my father at work. Even though we live in the same house, I would still go and meet him at work. And so I think it was just something that just came naturally, to be quite honest. And like I said, when I started, then my father gave me further training at home. And he would teach me how to pronounce certain words that I don't pronounce properly. So I got trained by my father, to be quite honest. And I think the rest is just came naturally.
Yeah. Okay. Now, after his stint, in broadcasting in Nigeria, you migrated to the UK. The expectation would have been, maybe you work with the BBC, with Sky News in the United Kingdom, but you worked for a local government. Tell me about this transition.
Thank you for asking that question. I actually wanted to continue when I got to the United Kingdom, and I actually did apply to BBC, and I was told to send a tape, and I did. And in those days, you didn't really find a lot of black faces on TV. So I'm not sure if that was the main reason, but I never heard from them. So I just thought, you know what? And you heard a lot of stories about racism in those days. So I just thought, well, maybe they didn't like my face. I just let it go. And I just went into something else. And local authority at the time was an easy organization to get into, especially if you were a family person. It was very easy to work for local authority because they'll give you time off to do things. If you're a mother, it was just an easier organization to work for back then. So I found myself doing something else. But I never left broadcasting, or would I say journalism completely. I found myself doing MC, Masters of Ceremonies for my friends when they have functions. And I did that, but not on a commercial basis, just ad hoc basis for friends. So I still did things along those lines, on and off.
Okay. So, I mean, what did you miss about this industry?
I miss a lot. Because when I left for England, I didn't plan to go to England to live. I went on vacation. So I was still working I was freelancing for LTV8 at the time. And I went on vacation and I never came back.
Why?
I met my husband, and I think the rest is history, they say. So that's how I stayed on there. And I just found myself doing something else at the time. But I really, really do miss it. And a lot of people have said to me, oh, Jumoke, why don't you come back home? But then there had been many years gone by. And a lot of my colleagues had left broadcasting, and there were a lot of new faces anyway. I mean, the industry had become larger. So, I guess it just wasn't meant to be for now. But you never know. Things can still happen. I'm a believer of that.
Okay. Now, having worked for the local government in the UK for 34 years, I mean, tell me, how was the transition like, really, broadcasting, then local government, or did you just settle for local government because maybe you'd have time for family, or that was what was available? Perhaps if you could have gone into PR, advertising, or other media-related jobs out there.
Very true, very true. Like I said, I think the moment I applied to BBC and I didn't get any way through them, I think it discouraged me, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to be able to get into this industry in the United Kingdom. End of. So I just closed the door to journalism in England. And because that was where I now lived, it wasn't something I was going to be doing anymore. But like I said, because I still have a passion for it, even up until now, I started doing similar things. I interview people. I belong to a lot of organizations, and because they knew of my skills, they made use of my skills. There's an organization in England called the Nigerian Schools Foundation, which is a collaboration of alumni in the United Kingdom. And I was I was a foundation member, and I was very, very active. They used me for emceeing work, interviewing our dignitaries. So I still did things like that.
You studied philosophy.
I did.
How did that shape your worldview? How did that shape your career?
Philosophy is a crazy subject in my books. I did philosophy not because I wanted to do philosophy. I actually wanted to read law, but I didn't make enough points at the time. So I asked what course I could do that could be a good background to law, and I was told philosophy. And I was meant to do philosophy for 1 year and then change in my second year to law. But by the time I started philosophy, I had already got into journalism. So that was why I went to do my postgraduate diploma in journalism at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, because I still thought I could pursue a career in journalism. And for my youth service, I was the public relations officer for the Commissioner for Information Lagos State at the time. So until I traveled, I was still within that path. But after I got to the UK, when I applied to local authority, I remember, as what they call a collection assistant. In England, it's what we call the council tax. It used to be called the poll tax in those days. And it was just an administrative job, collecting taxes and dealing with customers. And I've got good customer service skills. So it was something that I could do just easily.
Okay, now let me take you back a little bit. How did you deal with culture shock? I mean, in the UK, Nigeria to the United Kingdom, though it was, yes, we didn't have many black faces back then. Unlike now, the jackpot trend is all over. There are many Nigerians now in the UK now that you could associate with. But at that time, how did you deal with culture shock?
I'll tell you one thing. I am proudly Nigerian. Proudly Nigerian. And for me, I I just maintained my status. I am who I am. I don't change for nobody. So when I got to England, I just was myself. Obviously, they say when you're in Rome, you behave like the Romans, and you had to adapt to the policies of where you work. But besides that, I remained Jumoke Olasope, and I remained a Nigerian British because I was born in England. So I'm also British, so I've got dual citizenship. But to be quite honest, it didn't change who I was or who I am. And I used to wear my African outfits to work. Some people would say, why you're not wearing something official? And I said, well, if the Indians can wear their sari, why can't I wear my African outfit? So I remained the same person.
Well, you say, I mean, to cut it short, you say when you're in Rome, you behave like Romans. So which means you've been in the UK, and I mean, you were not,
Yeah.
you were, it was strange. I mean, seeing you don that attire.
In terms of abiding with some of the laws of the land,
Okay.
that's what I mean by where you're in Rome, you behave like the Romans. But in terms of me changing who I am because I want to be somebody else, no. Maybe in terms of the way we speak, that had to change a little bit, because when we speak in our African tradition accent, they probably don't understand. I beg your pardon, what did you say? And so you'd want to try to imitate the way they speak. So that did happen. That happens for a lot of us anyway. But besides that, just be yourself, and I still am myself. And just deal with it on its own merit. Take each day as it comes, and you just learn the way they do things. But it didn't change who I am. It didn't change who I am at all. I still remain Jumoke, and I still remain proudly Nigerian.
I mean, how does it make you feel now that there are many Nigerians, are migrating to UK in droves? How does it make you feel? Unlike that?
There's two sides to a coin. For those who come in the right way, I'm absolutely delighted for them. And if they stay focused, they can do very well. And compared to when we went, things were not as easy as they were much later. Things are a lot more difficult now. So times are changing as well. Back in those days, men didn't get good jobs, but now men get good jobs. But if you come in through the back door, or you're not documented, then life is going to be very difficult for you. And unfortunately, because I'm within the legal system myself, I cannot be seen to embrace anything that is not
Illegal.
So unfortunately, that's my position there.
Yeah. Yes, you worked with the magistrates in the UK, and I was just going through, of course, it has always been there. I remember when some human rights experts of the UN, accused UK of systemic, structural, and institutional racism. And is that the true picture?
It's very subtle. It's in some organizations, it might be very full blown, but it's very subtle. You can't compare it like it is in America, for example. And more so especially after George Floyd. So everybody's more conscious now. And we have these EDI programs, which is equality, diversity, and inclusion. So every organization in England now must have a policy on EDI. So it's more now than ever before that it's now being dealt with properly. But even at that, you cannot eradicate racism, unfortunately. It's there, but there are policies now to protect us compared to back then. But it's not something that you can do it and stand by it. If you get caught, then you'll be dealt with. So it's very subtle in England.
Okay, but what about within the justice system? Because there are reports about, or how the discrimination against people of African descent, particularly when they err, or when they throw caution to the wind, the justice dispensation, somewhat.
Well, as far as I'm concerned and the way we were trained, you have to be fair with everybody. We were told you're not judging the person, you're judging the crime that they committed. And yes, you would have some people that have their own views about the black race, and that comes through sometimes in the level of punishment. For every crime, there is a guideline of the punishment, a range. So you can take your range from the top end or from the bottom end or in the middle. It depends on the level of the crime. And that's why you have 3 magistrates that sit on the bench. So I make sure that we're fair to everybody. And I remember very clearly when I first became a magistrate, we judged a case. And because I wasn't very confident in myself, I allowed what I didn't think was fair to happen. But I couldn't face my colleagues to say I wasn't bold enough. And I remember when I got home, I had no peace within me. And I made sure that from that day on, if I found something unfair, I would speak out. And I'm well known in England for that. I speak out against any inequality or any discrimination. Even when I was working for local authority, I was very known to speak out on behalf of people. But it's a thankless task. I paid dearly for it because it affected my career. I wasn't allowed to make progress as fast as I should have. But God makes all things beautiful in His time. And He made all things beautiful eventually. And I can tell you now that I'm now retired. My colleagues are still working. So I'm the one laughing now.
I mean, something struck me. You said you paid, fairly, or dearly for it because they somehow stunted your career. And did you fight, for that, or there was no system in place, that could aid you in a way?
There was no system in place because some managers believe that they're mini gods. They can do whatever they like, and they get away with it. And so it's like you wanting to fight the government. You can't fight the government. And, you're just the one person. But it didn't change me. I still stood up for what was not right. And I still, I'm known for that. If something is not right, I would speak out. And when we have meetings at work, I would be the one that would ask the most questions and relevant questions as well. And so they saw me as a troubleshooter, but I'm not a troubleshooter. I just was somebody that stood up for what was just and right and fair. So management don't like people like us that speak out, and they see you as being troublesome, and they want to get rid of you if they can. And they did make attempts, but they didn't succeed.
So in retrospect, any regrets?
Yes and no. The yes is I could have dealt with it better. I was slightly aggressive in the beginning, and that probably made me a target. So the lesson there is aggression doesn't take you anywhere. As I got older, I became older and wiser. And I still dealt with those issues, but in a more subtle manner, in a more polite, calm manner. And I got better results. And I was actually recognized for it. It got to a stage I was now having meetings with the directors, in the organization, with the chief executive officer. I was sitting at the table with them because some people liked me and some people don't. And that's life for you. Some people would like you for being outspoken and some people wouldn't. So, but I didn't handle it very well in the beginning. But then I was young then, and I just did it the way I understood it. So my advice to anybody out there is there are ways to deal with things, but don't be aggressive about it because aggression doesn't go well.
I mean, this gives me a sense of activism. Perhaps you were or still, an activist. But in activism, they will say, okay, negotiation rights, you have to negotiate. Then you get to a point that you have to confront. Confrontation may be the only option. And we've seen that, most times, even the Black Lives Matter in the United States, after a series of negotiation, then George Floyd was, let me say, murdered. Then, naturally, people have to be aggressive to say we just have to fight for our life. Our voices must be heard somewhat.
Yeah, but your voices being heard doesn't have to be aggressive. And that is why when something is too aggressive, it doesn't all go well. It takes a different turn. That's not to say that you cannot be confrontational, because sometimes some situations require you to be confrontational. But you can be confrontational and say what you have to say, but you don't have to be aggressive with it. Sometimes you need a little aggression. So I think every case should be taken on its own merit. But I was just generally, I was very outspoken. I'm very bold. I'm very courageous. I fear nobody. I always say to my managers back then, I'm not scared of you. You're not God. I only fear God. So when a staff says that to a manager, what do you think? But like I said, it's not about being aggressive. It's about making your point and firmly. I speak firmly, making your point, but making it to the right people at the right time in the right place, or at the right place. So it's about that. So it's something that I've learned how to deal with it better. But I think I could have done better. But the other side of it is that I don't regret what I achieved in terms of helping people. But the lessons that I learned was I could have dealt with it better. And like I said, I paid a hard price for it because it affected my career.
I mean, any example you could maybe lay your mind on right now to drive home these points? Any example at all?
When you say example of what?
Or instance
of aggression?
Maybe of aggression or what you dealt with.
Okay. I was also a shop steward. I was a union rep. So if somebody had a case with management, because they knew I was very outspoken and I was bold enough, they would come and tell me about it. And so I would get the facts and then I'll approach management. And I'll say, this is what somebody's told me. What say ye? And and because I was who I was back then, they would have to answer me because I would not stop. I would make noise about it. And I got results for quite a lot of people. I helped people because some people are very timid. They fear, that they might be they might pay a price for it. They might be victimized, and that's what happens. But not everybody can face it. I faced it, and but because I was bold enough, I was courageous enough. Not a lot of people can do that. And I used to say that no is not in my books. If you say something and I think it's no, I'm going to say no to you. Not everybody can say no. Not everybody can face management. Well, I did, and I don't regret that because I helped a lot of people. So as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished. But then mission could have been accomplished in a better manner, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, lovely. So now, what would be your advice for many Nigerians that have left? Some of them in the UK, Canada, United States. Now it seems there's attention on Australia. Now, and those that are still thinking, of leaving. The impression is, it's always greener, on the other side. Yes, these countries, advanced countries, they have the basic, amenities, and some, like the Jackpot trend, we say is Jackpot, like, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back. I don't want to come back to Nigeria. We're even seeing an instance of someone who tore, his Nigerian passport, saying, disassociating myself, from Nigeria. We know the state of the nation, basically. So what's your advice to many of these Nigerians?
Nigeria's got its own issues, but every other country in the world have their own issues too. It's just that everybody have different types of issues. and it's how you deal with it. And I pray Nigeria will still be better. But my advice is, whatever anybody does, do it the right way, do it the legal way. Even when you do it the legal way, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make it. Some will and some won't, because some people are just copycats. They want to do what their colleagues are doing. So, but my advice is, you do what God has given you. God has given everybody a God-given talent. Run with it. Run with your passion. Don't say, because somebody has done this, I have to do it. The fingers are not the same. And so, like the Yorubas would say, "Ma wa gwala go shishe." You know, when you interpret that, don't. Well, how do you say that in English?
Well, don't copy. Let's just say, frankly, like, don't copy.
Yes,
others,
because
what's worked, for them may not
work for you.
Yeah.
So, and I would just say, do things properly and make sure that you do your homework very well. Before you do anything, look into it thoroughly. Find out what the requirements are. I know some people that left for England and they don't even have accommodation. I actually saw a guy that came, the taxi that picked me up from the airport. I was coming from holiday, and he went to this driver, and the driver begged me to say, "Please, can you allow me to take this guy?" And I said, "That's okay." And he said he was going to a hotel, a B&B. We took him there. And when we got there, there was no accommodation for him. And he was calling the person who was supposed to have made this arrangement for him. The person was in Nigeria, who had lived in England before. And we couldn't leave him alone because we knew what was going to happen to him. He would be a victim of crime. So the man had to find. We stayed with him for a little while, and then we said he should call people. I got involved. We started talking to his people. You have to help this guy. Eventually, they helped him. We gave him our phone numbers just to make sure that we followed up on him. If you don't do your homework very well, why would you leave Nigeria? You leave certainty for uncertainty. It's not the right way to go.
Well, some would say uncertainty, for uncertainty, somewhat. For people with uncertain future, there are people that are unemployed here too. There are people that, they've benefited wrongly, from the system. No jobs, the state of insecurity. No basic amenities, in most places.
Yeah.
So it's more of uncertainty for some people here too.
I know. But at the end of the day, this is still home. You've got your family here. You've got your friends here. Worst come to the worst, hopefully somebody out there would help you. But you're going to a no man's land. Who's going to help you? You can't. Yes, people say England is a welfare state, but you can't get to England today and be on welfare. It doesn't happen that way. So you're going to be left out in the cold. Some people promise they would help you, and when you get there, they don't help you. What they promised you, they don't deliver. Which is why I said, do your homework very well before you go. I'm not saying people should not leave if they want to leave, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So anybody can go anywhere. But do your homework very well and make sure that when you're leaving, you know what you're going to be doing, you know where you're going, and you confirm that everything is going to work well. But when you go and you're not certain, you're opening up yourselves for the unknown, and the unknown can be very, 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 very bad experience. And we've had some people recently that have gone for this carers visa. They promised them a lot of work. And when they got there, what happened? No work. They're not working, and they've sold everything to be able to go over there. And there are no returns at the moment. So what do you say to that?
But Ms. Olasope, will this brain drain ever lead to brain gain? Like it did lead to brain gain in India, maybe Pakistan somewhat. There was a time the nationals were leaving, but now when it comes to medical tourism, India is one of the destinations. Will it ever lead to brain gain? Particularly with the mentality of Japa, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back.
I really don't know, because I really don't know so many people who are in that boat. A lot of people that I know are in England legally, and I don't know the people that Japa in legally. Most of them come in through, they've come for their master's program, for example. And I can tell you, the people that came for their master's program, they've done their master's, they've looked for employment, and they found employment, and they're doing very well. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question, because I really don't know much about that area. And I don't know what to say what I don't know much about.
Okay, let me take you back to media. Does Nigeria, have an image problem? Because people talk about how the way Western media, portray Africa, then Nigeria. That it's all about the negative aspects of whatever that is happening in the country, the poverty rates, the slums, and yes, every country has an armpit. So it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone. Even in the UK, there are slums too. In the United States, there are slums too. But hardly will you see that, on their media stations. But when it comes to Africa, when it comes to Nigeria, they come here and the portrayal is more on these negative aspects and why they pay less attention on the positives, in the nation.
Yeah, I don't think that's a government policy at all. I think it's an individual thing, but that's very true. You might have a Nigerian British. If they commit a crime, they're Nigerian on that day. If they do something good, they're British. They're proudly British. That happens quite often. But I don't think that's something that they're told to do. I think it's an individual thing. Some people are born racist, or they grew up with negative images about Africa in general. For those people, they need to be educated. And it's down to us to educate them. We need to be proud of where we come from, and we need to educate them. And that is why, for example, when I worked for Newham Council, I would go to work on Nigeria's Independence Day in my African outfit, green, white, green, for that day. And I'll try to encourage my other Nigerian colleagues to do the same, be proud of where you've come from. And they'll say, hey, but Jumoke, that's not where, how can I wear agbada to work? I said, but just for that one day, you're showcasing where you come from. So I think we have a lot of work to do as well. We need to be proud of where we come from, because if I don't praise myself, who's going to praise me? So as far as I'm concerned, we need to open their eyes and educate the people. And like you rightly said, every country have their good and their bad. It's not unique to Nigeria. And that is why when we bring our children home, we make sure they see everything. We take them to places. When I used to bring my son home, he used to love coming to Nigeria. It was very different from where we lived in a council flat. We had no land to play, no garden. But when he comes to Nigeria, he's on a big land and he plays football, he runs around. It's very different. So Nigeria is good. And if you look at our Nigerians abroad, they're making history. They're going places. A Nigerian owns Gatwick Airport. We have a lot of Nigerian doctors in the NHS. A lot of Nigerians are nurses in the NHS. A lot of Nigerians are teachers. We're engineers. We're doing very well. We're very intelligent people. But then we also have the few people that just give us a bad name. And it is that bad name. It's like anything. Bad news spreads fast. And I think that's just what it is.
So you're saying, there's no deliberate conspiracy to say, oh, this is how I want to project Nigeria, or this is how I want to project Africa?
I wouldn't think so. Some people may have that agenda, but I don't know about it. But I wouldn't say it's deliberate, but I think it's an individual thing. They're not trained. Nobody is told, go and portray them to be negative. Nobody's going to tell you that. But we're all different. We have come from different backgrounds. So I suppose it depends on what you know, and that would reflect in how you deal with certain issues.
But what about the framing of insecurity, for instance? I don't know why, maybe when you're friends now that you come into Nigeria, but I've spoken to people they would say, when we're coming, like people are asking, why are you going to Nigeria? Is that country safe? Owing to the reports of the banditry, insurgency, they hear. So at times people tend to believe, oh, it's every part of Nigeria, that is unsafe. And you also know that embassy also, dish out these instructions to their nationals to say, okay, don't go here, don't go there. But here you are. I don't think you are paranoid here. I want to believe you're walking, freely. And because even in the UK, I mean, we've heard of knife attacks.
Of course.
So, it's not totally safe too.
No.
And there's no place in the world that is 100% safe.
Yes. I said something not too long ago that it's down to us. We need to create that awareness. We need to be proudly Nigerian. So if our children are saying, oh, they don't want to come to Nigeria, it's because of stories that they've heard. So just like a white man would have heard stories about Africa and treat Africans that way, that's what's also happening to our children who have not been home and have heard stories. It's down to us parents to change that narrative. Now, I've been in Nigeria since middle March. And people say, Jumoke, you're still in Nigeria? I'm like, yes, and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. And I said to you, I'm proudly Nigerian. I live by that statement. I come to Nigeria, I went to Port Harcourt. I was told, oh my God, be very careful. They're kidnapping in Port Harcourt. I spent a week in Port Harcourt. I had fun. I came back. But at the end of the day, it's God that protects us as well. I wouldn't do anything, I wouldn't be careless as well, because we know these things happen. But it doesn't mean that that is what Nigeria is all about. I've been to a lot of places. In fact, when I came this time around, I've seen a lot of changes and I'm in awe. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of improvement. There's a lot of improvement here and there. So to be quite honest, things are changing. I've seen changes and I can only hope for the better. And Nigeria will be blessed once again and even be greater.
Well, Mr. Olasope, I mean, looking at your profile, you've had an eventful, career. Yes, having worked for the local government in the UK for 34 years, retired last year. You served as a volunteer with the Royal Air Force Cadets for 10 years as a civilian instructor. And you also served as the magistrate in the crime family and, yes, in the UK, that has to do with the legal sector. And now a public health advocate, and I'm wondering, health, and magistrates, trying to find some balance, between all this. I mean, how did you cope, or how were you able to, move from this? How were we able to gather everything together?
If you notice, there's a common trend in everything: volunteering. So I love to volunteer. I love to give back, because I strongly believe in that. When you are part of a community, you should play your own role, give your own quota. People are quick to complain. What are you doing about it? So you need to play your own role. So when I joined the Royal Air Force Cadet, if I remind you, I said I wanted to read law, and I didn't read law. But if you think about it, I found a way through a different route. I'm back within the legal system. Even though I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a magistrate, and I was trained, and I've been a magistrate for 17 years. So I might as well be a lawyer now, because I know a lot about the law. So when I went to a fair, I saw the stand for the Royal Air Force Cadet, and I walked to the stand and I asked questions, and I was just attracted to the whole thing. And I think because I'm somebody that I stand for fairness and justice, if you can see the jigsaw, if you started to put them together, there's a common trend here. And everything that I'm doing relates to being just and being fair, and doing things properly. I would not knowingly break the law, for example. I would not knowingly do anything negative. I wouldn't. So that's just who I am. And that's reflected in all the things that I'm doing. So when I approached the table of the Royal Air Force Cadet and they said they were looking for civilian instructors, and I asked more questions, and I thought, I like the sound of that. So basically, I gave up 2 days of my time every week, 2 evenings a week, to go to the squadron, and we have students from the age of 12 to 18, and we train them. It was military training. We had those who were officers, and we had the civilians like myself. And we also have an opportunity to train with them. So I got the opportunity, I went flying, I learned how to shoot, how to, everything that they do. I went on adventure training, everything, and I loved it. But you have to be trained to be able to train the cadets as well in certain areas of my specialization. So I was dealing more with administration, and I was dealing with to do with society, communities. I've forgotten the name. There's a name they give that subject. I've forgotten the subject. So those were the sort of things that I did. And because I was the eldest in that squadron at the time, they saw me, there was this mother hen figure that I had, and they knew that I was a magistrate as well. So sometimes when there were some legal things, they would just run it by me just to advise them. And it was a lot of fun seeing a young child come in there, very timid, but by the time they're leaving, they've acquired skills, they've gained GCSEs from certain subjects that they'll have the opportunity to learn while they're there. So I always say, if any parent knows what's good for the child when they're young, especially for the boys, send them to a cadets organization, because they learn something educationally, they learn skills, life skills, and they become a better person. And when they're going out for work, if they see on their CV that they have been a cadet, they stand out because they've been trained. And it's fun, it keeps them occupied as well, so that they don't fall into any trouble. There is no truancy or, trying to do naughty things. They stay focused because you're keeping them engaged. And that's what the problem of a lot of young people are. If they have nothing to do.
Well, you've heard from her. We've been able to touch on so many issues. So I must thank you specially. Thanks for coming on the show. It's, for your profound contribution and insights. And you did all the questions thrown at you. You did justice to that. Thanks once again.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure coming back to OGTV, where I first started my career, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that's the show today, and many thanks for watching. Till next week, when I come your way with another influential figure, I say to you, stay safe and stay out of trouble. Bye for now.